Hello buddy, I'm Dutch, and if you like hiking tips, fun adventures, and great gear, hit like and subscribe to join my vlog journey. And if you'd like to be notified when we upload a new video, click that bell as well. All right, let's go.
Hello buddy, I'm Dutch, and well, I was asked this weekend, I was camping down at Fall Sprawl, and I was asked why I purchased Loco Libre. Well, I thought this would be a great reason for a video, so here it is. So to give you a little bit of a backstory, the whole reason there is a Dutchware is because I used to be a DIYer. And the whole reason I'm a DIYer is because I was too cheap to purchase a quilt. At the time, it was really Jacks Are Better was the only thing that was available. And by nature, I am very frugal and I'd rather make things myself. And I made, probably it became an addiction. So probably 10 quilts that I made as I went along. And it was a great challenge, and I learned how to do the differential baffle. And I really liked laying them out. I would plan them, I'd get it all sketched out on paper as to where all the baffles would be and how much down, how many cubic inches each part's gonna be, the fill of the down that I'm gonna have, researching the materials that I would get. I was buying from a through hiker. I'd get their Momentum fabric, which at the time was the top of the line fabric that you could possibly get. The thread that I would use, every single detail was predetermined, and I would plan it out. It was definitely a hobby of mine that I really enjoyed, and I would show off to these quilts to people that had no interest in seeing it, but I'd be like, look at how straight my stitches are. And anyhow, that wound up growing to making hardware, to making hammocks, and to becoming Dutchware. But I've been asked in the past why I don't make my own quilts, why there isn't a Dutchware quilt. My answer always was, I don't have anything really special to bring to the party. The quilts that I manufactured, to the most degree, I was cloning what I already knew. And there are great quilt manufacturers out there today. I can give great shout out to Trailheads for their ultralight. John does some great ultralight custom work. And of course, there's Jacks Are Better, the old gangsters of the quilt manufacturing. Honestly, they invented the underquilt, in my opinion. So they've been doing this now for 20 years. And actually, the Pan, who used to own Jacks Are Better, I mean, he mentored me in the very beginning. So I did not feel that the world needed Dutch to make a quilt, because there are great quilt makers. Same thing with backpacks. There are great domestic custom backpack makers out there, and I would like to focus my attention to what I got going on, which I still got hammock designs. That is a very new industry in the scope of things, and there's still a lot of innovation that has to come around. So I was very content with my little world of purchasing quilts to put them on my site. And I would purchase Jacks Are Better, of course, and big shout out for them for making the zip-on chameleon underquilt, which works so fantastic. That's what I used this weekend. But then there is the Loco Libre. I would also purchase off of Loco Libre, and I'd put them on my site. It didn't have the impact because Loco Libre quilts, I would be stocking them, but you can go into Loco Libre and you could make a very special quilt for yourself. So if you were buying a Loco Libre quilt off of my site, it was because you were content with the very typical dark olive on the outside, black on the inside, and you weren't some build where you needed to be extra wide or extra short or anything like that. You could just get a standard off the shelf quilt. But I was very content with that. It made me a full supplier where I've got fantastic tarps with the bonded tarp and the Dyneema tarps, and my hammock line. Well, I'm very proud of what I got for the half wit and the chameleon, and Banyan Bridge has been incredibly successful, particularly this last year. I mean, that has really taken off. And I have now released the quilted chameleon, and that is me doing something special for the installation world. And that was very unique because it really is quilting, you're sleeping in your quilt, versus an insulated hammock, which has a whole second layer and is actually heavier than just using an underquilt with your hammock. So then George tells me that after 9 years of doing this, he is tired of making quilts and he was going to stop. And it was the same feeling, and it's the same reason why I bought Clark Hammock. is I did not want it to go away and not come back, or go overseas and be manufactured overseas, which I guarantee you in the near future, there's going to be more quilt companies coming out of overseas, because that's just the evolution of things. I did not want to see that happen to Loco Libre. They are very special, and in the design, but also the customability is really amazing. And I want to get into that a little bit, but for the design, I know how quilts are made, and now I know how Loco Libre quilts are made, and I know what goes on the inside, and there's more that meets the eye with the Loco Libre quilts. There's a reason why they are so darn warm. One of the biggest reasons that you easily can see is the chevron baffles. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. So a baffle prevents the down from all just flowing down to the very bottom here like you do on a down coat. But on a quilt, you want to do the same thing. But the down, if it's a straight baffle, is still able to move side to side. Well, that can be a big deal. Like, let's say you're wearing it as a top quilt and it's coming around here, the down could wind up going to the outer edges of the quilt, leaving it thinner in the bottom. It doesn't completely empty, but the down isn't staying in place. These chevron baffles, they make it so that in order for the down to move, it has to go around the corners. And this really works. And let me tell you how I know that this really works, is because we're 2 months into this now, and I'm doing the QC and the final packaging of these, because I want to check every quilt that goes out to make sure that it's exactly what the customer ordered, because these are all custom handmade quilts right here in America. Well, I want to make sure if the customer said it's 70 inches wide, that it's 70 inches wide. Seems like that should be a simple thing, but you have to remember that you are starting with a piece of fabric and you're folding it in, and then it billows, which shortens it up a little bit. And I want to make sure that they are getting a 70-inch wide quilt if they made it. That customization of the Loco Libre quilts is absolutely huge, and my second reason for wanting it. But one of the things that it is my job to move the down around so that it is evenly distributed. When we manufacture the quilt, we completed it about 95% of the way. And then we fill it up with down. Then we have to close it up and do a final rolled hem. Well, all the down is way down on one end. So I lay it on the table and I start padding it. Sometimes I have a ruler and I hit it with a ruler, which makes it flow, and I get it so it's evenly distributed. And I know the challenge that it takes, particularly when somebody goes and gets overfill, to get that down so that it is all broken up and evenly distributed. And the challenge that I have with doing that is the same reason why once it is distributed, it stays in place. And that is what makes Loco Libre quilts some of the warmest quilts on the market. That the down is going to be staying in place. It's going to be where you want it to be. If you want to move it, you can kind of move it. Like, let's say you wanted to have more down right where your body is. You can do that, but it will then stay pretty much in place to a great amount of time. If you make it evenly distributed, then it just stays pretty much evenly distributed, because there's no reason for it to go to create an empty chamber, because it wants to fill out those chambers evenly. The chevron baffles make it so that it does not move very easily. So when you're tossing and turning, you don't get a thin spot where your shoulder is because your shoulder started poking up. That down stays in place. I can't explain well enough how important that is to making sure that you have a totally warm, restful sleep, because you're not going to have a cold sleep. If you've ever slept and you've been cold, it is not a good night of sleep. This prevents that, and it takes a lot of work to make chevron baffles. Believe me, it really takes a lot of work to do that, but it is so worth it, and it makes the quilt special. That is really why, because if I had gone and released a Dutchware top quilt, bottom quilt, it wouldn't have I didn't have anything to bring to the party. It wouldn't have been unique. Now, sure, I have a good name, I have a good brand, and people would have purchased it. I would have sourced my materials. I supply the fabrics, so I already have a slight edge on the availability of the fabric. I have the laser cutter so I can cut everything. I can do the dye sublimation printer because I have a dye sublimation printer. So I'm definitely set up for it, but it still wasn't special enough. Now, with making Loco Libre quilts, it is special. The way he does his draw cords is there's a cord lock in the middle and there's a cord lock on the other end. And personally, I don't like the one in the middle. So when he gifted me a quilt a couple years ago for Christmas, my very favorite quilt. It's absolutely gorgeous, has my favorite print, and it is so warm. It's incredible. He called it a 20, and I'm like, I'm taking this down to 0. That's ridiculous. This is not a 20. But I didn't like the cord lock there, but that's okay because all I had to do was take some snips and clip it off, and then it just goes up into the quilt and you're able to use on either side. I might take off another one and just make it so it's on one side, but right now I kind of like it on both because that way I don't have to go remember, is that on the right side or the left side? When I go to the corner, I know it's there. I know there's going to be one there, and I can draw it and cinch it up around me so it gets around my neck. Sometimes I wear a quilt over beneath my head. I know you're not supposed to, or there's a lot of people that tell you not to, that you're going to put moisture in your quilt. I spend a lot of nights with quilts over my head and very cold nights. So, but anyhow, my point to that is there are very special details, stuff that you don't see in the design. And that brings me to the second reason why Loco Libre quilts are so special, and that I just absolutely am thrilled and jumped at this chance to be the owner of Loco Libre quilts. I say that with such pride. I really love these quilts, and that reason is going to be the customization that you can have here. Now, all quilts have some type of customization, almost all quilts. I mean, there's a couple that are made overseas, and let's count them out, okay? Honestly, they have not even come close to what the American cottage vendors, they will someday. You know, they're working on it, and I give it about 2 more years and we'll probably have, they will mimic what we have well enough. That's generally the trend that comes. But there's a varying degree of the cottage vendor quilts that you can, some of them, even in the same company, will have one line that you can't customize and one that you can, or you have a greater degree of customization. But very often, your choice for the inside color is black. Your choice for the outside color is 5 different colors. And then you might have 3 different temperature ratings that you can make it. And then you can have maybe a different length, sometimes a different width. And the amount of customization that you can get, it varies. With Loco Libre, that is turned up to 10. Every bit of this quilt, basically, you are designing the quilt. You are saying the width. You are saying the length. You are determining the temperature rating with 10-degree increments. You're saying whether or not you want overfill. You're given very specific. We can print anything, so you can have anything printed on it, whether it's prints that we have. This would be an example of that. This is a watermelon flesh, and somebody thought that would be a great quilt, so we went to make that. Or of course, there's all the different camos, but you could even send in an image. You could come up with a design. I know that I am planning my Loco Libre quilt. I'm going to make a really cool Loco Libre quilt with Dutchware logo, and I'm going to follow the lines of these chevrons. That each one of those is going to have a different color, and I can't wait to make this and show it off. But that is what Loco Libre is giving you. Loco Libre means crazy free, and you are crazy free in the way that you can design your own quilt right down to the colored threads. I have no idea why this person did this, but if you look on this quilt, this is what they wanted. They wanted pink thread on the chevrons. It's on the inside, it's on the outside. It does give it a nice visual pop, and well, it's what they wanted. And they determined the width. You can see that this quilt is wider than this quilt. This person determined that. That way they don't have to carry too much quilt. The amount of taper that goes into it, the customer gets to pick that. And after they pick all these options, we custom make this quilt very special for you. Very few Loco Libre quilts have been duplicated. They're all one of a kind piece of art, and that's not for everybody, but it's for some people. And I want to be that maker that makes something that when I'm done and when I finish with each of these, I look at it and every single one I'm saying, man, this one is a work of art. Whatever you do for a living, wouldn't you love to have that feeling? Like after you've done this task, like, man, I am really proud of what I just did. And that's what you get with Loco Libre. You are making works of art, real individual stuff. So those are my real reasons. These are fantastic quilts. I'm not gonna set the world on fire. I'm not gonna be making 10 quilts a day. And I don't wanna make 10 quilts a day. I wanna make a couple works of art that are really special. And when people take them out there and someone looks at it and says, wow, I really like your quilt. And they say with pride, yeah, this is a Loco Libre quilt. And this is a one of a kind. I went and I was able to pick this and I picked this temperature rating because this is as cold as I get. I picked the type of foot box, which by the way, I always prefer a sewn foot box. I find them to be warmer. But I went and I put on the draft collars, and basically, if they could make a quilt, they would make this quilt. Now, not everybody can make a quilt, but we can make those custom quilts for that customer. So I hope you see how I am brimming with pride that I am the owner of Loco Libre. It has now been 2 months, and actually I don't even know that it's really sunk in. It is something that I'm really excited about, and I'm really excited to move forward. It brightens my day every day. We seem to get an order for a quilt, and they're spaced out nicely so that they can be planned, manufactured, and go out the door. There's a little bit of work that we have to do. We are building a new website, and I hope to make someday that, there's a 3D builder so that you can really plan this out and see the quilt before you make it. We're gonna give some options of some high-end down, and the print options, well, the world's the limit there. I can do anything. I can print anything, and I can't wait to see what other people give me for ideas that I make their work of art for them. So that's everything. And well, until next time, thank you, everybody.
Well, thanks for joining me on that adventure. And be sure to check out some other playlists. And of course, check out dutchwaregear.com for some of the greatest hiking gear on the planet. As always, thank you, everybody.